Hey, what's up guys, I'm Exteria, and for those of you that know me, I said I wasn't going to make a meta video for set 15, but funny enough, I caved since I got bored while waiting for set 16. So, I played a few games and understood how bad the meta is, so basically we're gonna break it down here, which the meta is gonna be either reroll of 2 cost carries or potentially some 3 cost carries. If not, it could be hero augments, or it's either fast 9 meta. So this means that playing 4 cost carries are a bit too weak now at the moment. There are some exceptions where you can play maybe Soul Fighter Samara, but I would suggest to play if you have emblems, then you can play 4 cost carries better that way, since synergies kind of outweighs the 4 cost carries in general. And the strats you want to play around reroll is if you have hero augment, you can play that. If not, if you have 2 copies of multiple carries, like say for example, since Katarina is one of the strongest reroll comps right now, if you have 2 copies of Katarina, then you can just force it from that direction. Or if you have core items, then you can force it with that way as well. And what I mean by core items is if you have Nashor's Tooth or say for example a Hodge opener, then you could potentially play Katarina reroll this way as well. So try to look for one of these directions in order to play reroll, because if you don't, then you're probably gonna be too weak and not able to top 4 at all. And one more that I didn't mention in here is also if you have reroll augments, you can also force your reroll comps. For fast 9 strategies, you would want to do with a strong opener, potentially winning of most stage 2 and stage 3, because if you don't, you're kind of wasting your effort for potentially a fast 8th place instead of going fast 9. Or the same thing with the reroll augments, you can get econ augments to help you level up faster to potentially roll down at 4-2 and hopefully hit your 5 cost that way. Unless you want to gain more income, then you could play some crystal gambits on stage 3, since the more econ, the better it is to hit level 9. And the best strat I could say with the crystal gambit is on stage 3, if you're already on a 3 lose streak, try to double down for at least a 25 gold cash out, because 25 gold cash out gives you either a champion duplicator or just some sort of resources that you would need, like extra items and extra gold. And these are the comps that I would recommend to play in patch 15.7. This doesn't mean that these are the strongest comps to play, they're just the most consistent comps to play for top 4s, and you can just force every single time. But there's certain conditions for each of these comps. Like for example, in the reroll section for Kayle, I would say to play Kayle with Juggernauts, you're gonna have to have multiple copies to play it, and you have to have a bow to start with, because Kayle is heavily reliant on making everything perfect for her to be strong. Compared to Katarina, you can force it with any direction. Same with Malzahar with heavyweights, same thing. Kog Maw, technically you can force him without artifacts, but if you want to guarantee top 4, if you have a decent artifact for Kog Maw, this should be pretty easy for you to win rounds with. And for Gangplank, I tried multiple times to play him without rapid fire cannon, and it's just not good enough. Like there are times where you can top 2 with him without rapid fire cannon, but that's just due because your lobby is probably too weak and they failed to play their own comps, so therefore Gangplank will be strong in that sense. But if everyone is able to play their board correctly without rapid fire cannon, GP is no good. And these are all the good hero augments you can choose. Just hope that you can 3-star any of them and you'll be fine. And Garen's case is kind of in a weird spot. Technically, yes, he is strong, but not because the unit itself is good. It's more of Battle Academia is actually just strong as playing 7 on the board. And if for our fast 9's case, playing 7 mech is very powerful just because it scales really well into the late game. And on top of that, when you play with Lee Sin 2 as your secondary carry alongside mech, he just destroys everything with mech on top of that. The most base board that everyone knows for fast 9 is the TF styles, and there's like 2 different ways that I will show later in this video. There are other comps that are pretty strong that I didn't mention here, like for example, I didn't talk about 7 crystal gambit or playing vertical soul fighter if you get the emblems for those 2. And the reason why I didn't explain them is because they aren't too consistent to play for top 4s. They are comps where you have to high roll in order to win the game. And same thing with fast 9 Vars, you kind of have to 2-star every legendary. Compared to playing TF, you only need like 1 or 2 legendaries level 2, and then the rest is just all vertical tanks. Finally getting into it, our first comp we're gonna talk about here is Kayle reroll with vertical juggernauts. I would say this board in general isn't too strong. I would say the best way to play it is convert from juggernauts into 6 Wraith instead, just so you have more power on the board, since 6 Wraith actually does hit really hard. But in order to do that, you're gonna have to high roll a bunch of Kayles and Zac early game, because if you don't hit her level 3 and hit her level 9, she's just too weak, because her kit is when you hit level 9, she basically maxes out her whole kit. So when you play the early game, the best units to look for would be with Zac, Udyr, Aatrox, and Kayle. So you have this in the early game as you're re-rolling. If you cannot have Udyr yet, it's fine. You could just use a +1 duelist, like for example, like either Kai'Sa or a GP, until you can find Udyr later. And then once you do hit Udyr, I would suggest to take out the duelist and throw in the Udyr as fast as you can. So now you have at least 2 Juggernauts and 2 heavyweights on the board. And the main key here is when you're building Kayle, the best thing to look for is her red buff. Technically, Gwynsu Rageblade did got buffed this patch, so it would be pretty decent to have on her. But I still feel like personally that red buff is still better overall. just because it has an anti-heal, and it gives Kayle some pretty good damage. Second to that would be Giant Slayer, just so you can kill all the tanks pretty easily. And Jewel Gauntlet is very powerful for her wave slash attack. It's not really for auto attacks, it's just more for the wave itself to do a lot of damage. And then Zac is really good with any health items, and then just put whatever resistance you can on him. But yeah, if you're looking to play a real board for this style of Kayle, I would suggest probably 4 Juggernauts with 4 Wraith at the time. So say for example, you find 2 more Juggernauts like Mundo and Vi, and then when you hit level 8, then you could play like 2 Wraith units until you can hit level 9 later. This board actually hits a lot harder since Wraith does hit pretty hard when you have 4 on the board. And then when you hit level 9, then you can transition into having Vars if you can find them. And then we take out the Aatrox, Mundo, and Vi, and throw in the rest of the units you would need to make this board stronger, which would be Poppy, so you can have at least a heavyweight with the Zac. And since you're going to need more Wraith units, Cassante would be the last one. And since Cassante is Protector, then having a Neeko in would help overall for this board to be very powerful. So from here, this board should be strong enough to potentially at least top 2 you if you could play it correctly. But if you just want to make it easier on yourself, you can just play full Juggernauts, it's fine. But I wouldn't really say that having 6 Juggernauts is top 2 potential. For the best fruits you can pick on Kayle, I would say over 9,000 is the best one if you're going to force Kayle reroll, because the more stats you get on her, the stronger she would be. But the catch is, if you don't have this fruit on stage 2-1, you can look for any other attack speed ones, such as Ramping Rage is fine, or you could do Surge 66, or potentially even Double Strike. Apparently Double Strike is actually pretty good now on like Ashe and Xayah, and potentially Kayle, because apparently the extra auto attacks actually just help them out overall. Or if you want the Wraith synergy itself to do more damage, Shadow Clone would be really good since you have 2 Kayles on the board doing damage. So either one of these fruits are fine. And then for Zac's case, apparently Body Change is the best overall, just because his HP is super high and you have a potential second tank next to him. If not, any other tank ones is good, like for example like Resistance down here, or you can do round 2, either one's fine. Just pick whatever you think is best. Next up we got is one of the most powerful reroll comps in the current meta, and I did make a short about it, so let's let that explain it. This is how you play Katarina reroll under 60 seconds. For Katarina's best in slot items, her core is Nashor's Tooth for the mana regen, can trade it out for the artifact Dawn Core since they both serve the same purpose. Her second item to keep her alive would be Edge of Night, or the artifact Zhonya's. Her last item would be Hands of Justice, or Bloodthirster is also okay. If not, you can get the artifact Wit's End to give her sustain. You want to reroll at level 6 for the best odds to 3-star Katarina, and potentially you can 3-star Rakan as well. The best board to make at 6 would be 5 Academia with any of the Academia units, and a +1 Executioner. If you find Rise early enough, trade out Callista for Rise. The end goal is 7 Academia. A positioning like this is important, makes Katarina jump to the backline on either side of frontline. The best Katarina fruit is Max Arcana or over 9,000 for stacks. If not, Himrich is good for damage. Second fruit on any tank. So now that you understand like 90% of the information on how to play cat reroll because of that short, I didn't really explain the positioning part because I ran out of time to explain it. Most people didn't understand like how this positioning even works, and you can put Rakan down here, this is fine as well. And the reason why this works is because Katarina will jump to the backline and potentially kill the carry. So if the carry is on the left side, then you put Katarina on the left. If the carry is on the right side, then you put Katarina on the right. If you want a more control version of potentially having Cat jump the main carry, then just put Unstoppable on Rakan and put him next to Cat so that Rakan can dash this way and Katarina could jump straight. So that's the easiest explanation for it. And most people will be saying, wouldn't it be a waste to pop Edge of Night on Katarina because if she's solo like this, it's kind of a waste? And the answer to that is technically not, because your front line will be walking up by then. As soon as it pops, then that means that all these units are going to get targeted first, and then it'll target Cat later. So that's the reason why I like positioning like this. But lately I've been positioning more like this to have more control of what I want to do. And then for the fruit situation, I did explain that Max Arcana would be probably one of the best, or over 9,000, either one's fine. But they're only good unless you start them on stage 2-1. If not, go for Himrich. And the second unit I like to fruit all the time would be Unstoppable on Rakan, just so you can disrupt the fights for Katarina to jump to the back. Next up, we got one of the most easiest comps to play, and I probably would suggest playing this comp if you want LP. If you're probably like below Masters, or even low Grandmasters, I would say, you could potentially just force this comp every game and just win out. All you have to do is just hit level 7 and 3-star Malzahar with 3-star Darius. Honestly, I would say 3-starring Jace is kind of useless unless you have some items on him, like for example Thieves Claws, since 3-starring a unit with no items is kind of pointless in my opinion. But yeah, this comp is actually really easy. It's just 6 heavyweight with Malzahar, and when you hit level 8, just throw out +1 more Prodigy, like for example Seraphine, since Poppy and Seraphine are both Star Guardian, at least give Poppy some extra synergies. And if somehow you're able to hit level 9, then you throw a +1 unit, like for example Zyra or something, whatever looks cool, doesn't really matter. In most cases, this won't happen. The max cap board you probably hit was level 8 because you have the 3-star Darius and Malzahar level 7. And the reason why this board works really well is because one of the best mechanics ever made in TFT history is fruits. And yes, you would need Noxus Trap no matter what on Malzahar, because if you don't, this board will be completely useless. So you have to force this fruit no matter what on him. And for Darius' case, you can put whatever fruit that looks cool. If you need armor pen, you can use this fruit that I can't read, or you can take final boss, or if you're feeling kinda silly, you can do 2x KO if you want to for extra CC, or if you're lucky enough to get Darius early enough. Not done yet is actually really good on him, so you can get some extra Omni Vamp and some extra damage shop on him. Other than that, just anything that looks cool on Darius, just pick whatever you want. Next up, another comp that's very similar to the Malzahar's case is the heavyweight Kog Maw. You can play this different versions, you can play full protectors if you want to, but the max cap version is probably has to be heavyweight because of Darius 3, so he's a very powerful unit as well. And the way you play this board is depending on your artifacts. So you have any of these artifacts, you can throw it on Kog Maw. It doesn't really matter, whichever one looks cool. But his best items to build would be like Shojin plus Archangel Staff. If you don't have another artifact for whatever reason, they could do +1 Shojin or +1 Archangel Staff, whichever one. And yeah, that's basically about it. It's like the same reasonings as the Malzahar's case. I feel like there's no point 3-starring Jace unless you have items on him like these gloves. Other than that, just play whatever frontline you think is cool, either protectors or heavyweight. For Kog Maw's fruits, I would say the best one overall would be Fairy Tail, just because he would cast a lot since his mana pool is very tiny. If not, you could do something like Surge 66 for extra damage or Double Strike. Either one's fine. I'll say any of the monster tamers fruits, like for example like Beastess Boys or Bestest Boys, however you want to pronounce it, it's not as useful anymore as it used to be since they kind of reworked the way how Monster Trainer works since they don't gain levels anymore. So any of the combat augments are fine that you see here that are S tier. Even Storm Mentor is potentially pretty good too if you can't hit these 3 S tier ones. And then for Darius' case, whatever looks cool, just pick whatever you want. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. Next up we got is a comp that can be S tier if and only if you play with these directions. For one, you do need rapid fire cannon on Gangplank like almost no matter what. You could potentially play without it and put Gunblade on him and technically it'll be okay, but for the most part I feel like you need rapid fire cannon in order to be guaranteed top 4. And second of all, both of these units, Gangplank and Kayle, need specific fruits. That's the reason why you gotta position something like this. And the fruits that you will need is, for Gangplank's case, you need Gather Force no matter what. That's the reason why we're playing with double Shojins on him, so he can keep casting forever and stack up his damage. But the second factor is, on Kayle, you need something called Fury Break. And the reason why you need this is because as soon as she dies, with that fruit on her in the front line, she will give a bunch of attack speed to Gangplank, so he'll just cast infinite. So this is the reason why you need these specific fruits on both of these units. And on top of that, having the rapid fire cannon will make him snipe everyone across the map, so he can stay alive just casting forever. But potentially, yes, you can do without rapid fire cannon. It's just not basically top 2 material without rapid fire cannon. Unless your lobby is super weak and they failed to play the boards, then potentially this comp will be very, very strong to play. In the early game, if you're playing for reroll GP, then I would say to play for around 4 duelists and 3 mechs. So basically your level 6 board will look something like this, I would say, where you would have this as your early game board, and this vehicle is not here. So you have something like this in the early game. If you want extra frontline, then you can just hold on to Kayle or pivot Kayle and then just use Viego if you have him level 2. But if you have 6 duelists, play 6 duelists no matter what, because 6 duelists is super cracked since it gives you durability and it gives you a lot more attack speed. So if you have Emblem or say for example you Hyrule and Ash, then just force it no matter what so you can gain extra damage. And usually by then, around like stage 3-5, you get your second fruit anyway, so you position something like this, so that Kayle will die to give GP extra attack speed. And then from here, then level 7, you throw out Aatrox for that Juggernaut for Udyr. Then level 8, just throwing a +1 mech. I would say the best one would be J4, because he gives extra CC, and your board will look like this in the end. Next up we got is our hero augments now, and this one is Shen. In order to play this board, you have to play full Bastions with a Xayah. So your level 6 board will basically look something like this without the Leona. So you just play a 5 Bastion and a +1 Edgelord like Xayah. In most cases, I would play with Yasuo instead until I get a Xayah 3, or unless I have extra items for whatever reason, then I would play Xayah instead if I have extra items for her. So either one's fine. And for Shen items, you always need Guinsoo's Rage Blade no matter what to give him extra attack speed, so you can just keep smacking people. Then Gunblade to heal the board. Then +1 items such as Giant Slayer would be great. If not, anything else is okay. Then for your frontline items, anti-heal such as Sunfire and Armor Break like Even Shroud's good. Or if you can't build Even Shroud, You can put Last Whisper on your Xayah and just put Xayah next to Shen. This works as well. And then level 7, just play for 6 Bastion. Then level 8, you can just throw out a +1 unit like Zyra or something. Whatever looks cool. It doesn't really matter. Or potentially you can throw in Seraphine. Either one's fine as well, since she's actually a very good +1 unit in the current meta. Don't worry if you can't 3-star Xin Zhao yet. If you have a 3-star Shen, you could just make anyone else a tank. Like for example, you can make Leona the main tank instead if you don't have Xin Zhao level 3. And if for whatever reason you can hit level 9, then having Gwen would be pretty good, since it gives you pretty good synergies with Sork on Swain and Soul Fighter with Xin Zhao. And if you want to upgrade a unit, I would say Braum over Garen would be best, since you need Star Guardian with Xayah. For the best fruits you can put on Shen, over 9,000 would probably be the best, so you can have a bunch of extra stats on him, since Magic Resist does scale with damage for him, and any tank stat in general is pretty good on him, since he's a Bastion himself, or even any AP, AD, attack speed, it doesn't really matter. All stats are good on him no matter what. If you fail to get over 9,000 on stage 2-1, then you can do something like Corner Carry is actually really good on him, or Ramping Rage is also pretty good, or if you're gonna follow the trend of on-hit stuff, Double Strike is actually really good too. So basically anything with attack speed or over 9,000 is great on him. And then for your tank fruits, I would say Tank Zealot would be the best, just because you have 6 Bastions on the board. They should last long enough for the stun to happen, and the stun does help a lot in fights. The next hero augment comp here is Vi, and pretty straightforward like the Shen one, where you just play vertical juggernauts, and your backline carry is going to be Smolder for this one. All Smolder needs is just Last Whisper to armor break, or if not, whatever sword items you can find, if you have Even Shroud on Mundo instead. So therefore, you don't really need Last Whisper then if you have this item on Mundo. Either one's fine, it doesn't really matter which one. For Vi's items, you would need Edgenite, IE, and Hodge. There's really no other way around it, you kind of have to force these items. And technically, yes, this is 7 units on the board. You do need to reroll at 6, so most of the time you probably don't have a set by then, so you can just play this instead until you hit level 7, then throw out set for 7 Juggernauts. And then if you do hit level 8 for whatever reason, then you can put in like Zyra or something, whichever is cool to you at the time. Just whatever can power up the board even more, just throw those out. Even if you don't get Smolder level 3, it's fine, just because he's there for anti-heal and somewhat backline damage anyways. But if you do want to win, I would suggest maybe 3-starring like all these units here, so you have enough power to win the game. The best fruits you could put on Vi would be something like Not Done Yet, because it gives her a lot of Omnivamp and a lot of damage amp, and they did buff it in recent patches, so instead of dying 8 times, now the unit just has to die 6 times in order to gain the full benefits. If not, you could do over 9,000 because extra stats is good for reroll comps. And speaking of stacks, max attack is actually pretty good too, because it gives you 80 for every couple takedowns, so this fruit is actually pretty good too. Or if you can't find any of those, warming up is pretty decent too overall. So any of those fruits that I just said are good on Vi, Hero Augment. And the other unit you want to fruit is Smolder, and Efficient would probably be the best since you want him to keep casting a lot to anti-heal the whole board. Unless you don't have any armor pen on the board, then Sky Piercer would be best. So I'll say either one of these two is the one you want to take on Smolder. Another hero augment juggernaut comp we could talk about here is the Mundo one. And for this case, all you need to play is just literally vertical juggernaut with a +1 luchador. Like it could be Gnar, or you can upgrade that into a Braum later. Either one is fine, but for the most part, your board will look something like this at level 6. If you can't find set yet, it's fine. Then you can just look for +1 luchador, and this will be your board instead. This is fine as well. Then hit level 7 to find set, then you can throw them out. But for the most part, for items, you need Quincy's Rageblade on Mundo with IE, +1 item like Giant Slayer, or you can do Strikers. It doesn't really matter for a third item, to be honest. And frontline, all you need is just anti-heal with Armor Break +1, 3-star Mundo, and try to 3-star Vi. If you can't 3-star her, it's fine. You can use Set or Udi as the main tank. Doesn't really matter. And if you do hit level 8, you can throw out any 5-cost backline unit. It doesn't really matter. It could be TF, it could be Varus, it could be Zyra. It doesn't really matter. Just find whatever you can. And just hope that you win out with this. For Mundo's fruit, max vitality would be pretty good since he scales with HP. So the more kills you get with this fruit, the more HP you will get. If not, you could do something like over 9,000 for stacks as well. Either of those is fine. Or if you want to auto attack more, then double strike would be really good on Mundo. And I would say that's basically about it for his fruits. So basically it's either double strike or any of these stacking ones. And for Vi's case, Tankzilla would probably be best just because you have extra CC on the board for this. Since you have 6 Juggernaut on the board, she should last long enough for this to pop. If not, any other tank one that looks good to you, just take that. Next up we got is the Neeko Hero Augment. And in order to play this comp, it's just basically Vertical Protector with Ahri. When you play this board, you want to play it from a level 7 perspective because it's the highest chance to 3-star both your Ahri and your Neeko. So basically you don't have Rise, and this is your board. At level 8, just throw out Rise. Pretty simple, right? For your items, you would want Edgenite, just so she doesn't die as easy, and Jewel Gauntlet for the extra damage. and since she's gonna be usually like the last frontline left, Titan's stack would be really good for her, so she could just keep casting with a lot of defense. And for Ahri's case, all you need is Voice Staff, then whatever items you could build on her, like you could build Shojin or Blue Buff, or even Adaptive Helm for mana item. And any AP item you can find on her, like Death Cap, Jewel Gauntlet, doesn't really matter. Since we need anti-heal, you can build Sunfire on Cassante, or better yet, you can do Morello on Janna. Either one's fine. As long as you have some sort of anti-heal on the board, this should be great to do overall. And if somehow you do hit level 9, you can just throw out a Zyra or whatever 5 cost unit you can find on the board. For your fruits on Neeko, because you're not building lifesteal, and the main reason why you don't build lifesteal on her is because she already has health regen on her ability, but having Crimson Veil helps her stay alive even longer, since it's potentially like a free Bloodthirster on her. And I would say this is the best fruit you can put on her, unless you want one with decent damage and also extra health. The Not Done Yet is actually really good on her. Or if you want stacks, then over 9,000 is good for that. Or if you just want a bunch of AP to one-shot the board, then Max Arcana would be great for that. So any of those fruits that you saw, you could choose either one of those, but I prefer Crimson Veil. And the other fruit you want to put on is Ahri, and the one you only want to pick on Ahri, so this is where you have to get picky, is Double Down. The reason why is because this will give you a lot of mana for Neeko. So every time when Ahri casts, it will transfer some of the mana to Neeko so she can keep casting too. So therefore, always choose this fruit when you're playing the Neeko hero augment. Now onto the last hero augment, which is Garen. And the reason why this hero augment is good, not because Garen is strong, it's more due to the fact that 7 Battle Academia is actually pretty strong overall in the current meta, just because everything else is weak. So in order to play this comp, you would need to have Garen with Bloodthirster, Titans, and a Spear of Shojin. The reason why these items work really well is because Shojin makes him cast infinite, Titans give him some extra damage, and Bloodthirster gives him survivability. For Ezreal's case, because you're 3-starring Garen anyways, you might as well 3-star Ezreal as well. You just put whatever AP items plus a mana item on him. If you can't 3-star your Ezreal, it's fine. You could use Yuumi instead as the AP item holder. But that means she doesn't need the Shojin, she could just use blue buff, it's fine. Or adaptive, either one's great on her. And if you do hit level 8, then the unit you can throw out would be Kubuko, just because it gives you some damage reduction with Mentor. And you also get heavyweight with Chase, so your whole board gets plus 100 HP, which is pretty useful overall. And if you get lucky hitting level 9, just throw whatever looks cool to you. Doesn't really matter, to be honest. You could throw out Zyra if you want. This is pretty useful in the end game. But most of the time you won't be able to hit 9. Probably this will be your final board in most cases. For the best fruit you can put on Garen, over 9,000 would be the best overall, since, you know, like I said, every other hero augment, extra stats is really strong. If you can't get that, warming up would be pretty great, since it converts all your defense stats into damage stats, so you can just one-shot everything. Or if you think you can make it a stage 5-2, or basically stage 5-3, then take final form so you can 4-star your Garen. In most cases, I would say this is kind of risky to do, but if you think you can make it to late game, then take this fruit. And the second unit you want to fruit would be Ezreal. If he's 3-starred, you put double down on him so you can make Garen cast infinite. This is kind of the reason why that 3-starring Ezreal could be potentially useful, so you can make Garen keep casting a lot with the mana spent from Ezreal. Unless you're going to be playing for Yuumi, then you could just play whatever Yuumi fruits you can find on her. Like the best I would say on her is either Bullet Hell or Stormbender. Either one is fine. As long as you do extra damage on the board, these two would probably be best. If not, maybe Sky Piercer if you don't have Armor Break on the board for Garen. Now onto the Fast 9 comps, and this one is the Mech comp, and this is the typical position that I will do most of the time. So before I break down the items here, the two units you mainly want the Mighty Mech fruit is Aatrox and Senna. The reason why is because Senna will give Executioner to Mech so that its ability can crit, and Juggernaut to Mech so that it can gain durability, so it has extra defense stats. Back in the day, we used to put Lucian in for the extra AP, but then we realized the extra AP doesn't mean anything compared to the durability that Juggernaut provides. And the reason why you put flat stat items on them is because it transferred the stats from the items on the unit into Mech itself, so it makes it even more powerful. So potentially saying you put 3 random items in Aatrox and Senna, so you can have extra stats on the Mech itself. And the best items you want to put on Lee Sin is Sterak's, because this item is actually very powerful on him into the late game, and just put whatever AD items you can find on him later. You turn him into the Juggernaut, so that you get Juggernaut Aatrox. Then your secondary carry is going to be Karma, and Karma has mana items such as blue buff for Shojin and voice staff for that magic resist shred so that Mech can do extra damage, and some sort of anti-heal item. If not, you can do AP item like Jewel Gauntlet, it's fine. but I prefer the anti-heal because Karma's damage is whatever, to be honest. So this board is really hard to get to towards the late game. What you could do is, the trick I would do at level 8 so that you can guarantee at least a top 4 is if you don't have any of these items, you can put at least the Strats onto one of the mech units. Probably Aatrox would be best since he's a tank unit, but sometimes Senna is okay. And most of the time you'll have Lee Sin at level 8. This part is where it gets a little bit tricky, because you want a Mighty Mech Dilution here instead of the Senna first, because you do need Juggernaut on the board if you do mech the Aatrox. So that means Udyr would be best, so that you have extra tank on the board, and positioning like this would be okay. So now that the mech gain extra AP from the Sork, and Juggernaut still from Aatrox. So you might be wondering, why not just fruit the Senna instead of Dilution, is because you don't have Executioner on the board, so what's the point? And if you do want Executioner on the board, then you're gonna have to give up the Juggernaut from Aatrox just to have Executioner for Senna, and in my opinion, it's not even worth it. So it's better just to have the Udyr out instead at level 8, and you also gain Duelist with GP for extra stats. So this board would probably stabilize you until level 9, unless for a reason you cannot hit this Yone, then you can look for whatever 5 cost to hold out with until then. And then when you do hit level 9, then you roll for your Yone and your Lee Sin on the board. Then you look for the Rise as your 9th unit to fit everything all together. Tip here is, if you do have Lee Sin 2, transfer the Strats into Lee Sin so he could do a lot of damage with this item. And if I wasn't clear on which fruits to pick the mech pilot fruit on both Aatrox and Senna, unless like I said earlier about the whole Lucian thing. So basically, it's Aatrox +1 that you want to fruit the mech pilot on. So when you're playing the early game 4 mech, the trick you want to do is, if you have Lucian, Aatrox, GP start, then we have mech. Most of the time when you decide to play this comp, you probably have a Shojin start to begin with, or if not, maybe a Jugon start. Either one's fine. Then we play for Cannon, and then just fruit Lucian to carry us out. And the trick that I am going to explain is, once you hit level 6, around stage 3, you're going to have to play Crystal Gambit. The reason why is because you want extra gold income, since hitting level 9 is super hard. So when you do hit level 6, the best unit to look for, instead of Cannon, look for Swain, and then you throw out Vi for Juggernaut for Aatrox, and then +1 Crystal Gambit. It doesn't really matter, it could be Janna or it could be Syndra, either one is fine. Then the trick is, if you are lose streaking stage 3, you might as well double down. So when you cash out on stage 4 too, you gain about a 25 gold cash out, which is pretty good to give you either extra resources that you would need to hit level 9 easier. If not, if you are continue win streaking with this board, then just cash out and don't double down. If you want to play it safe, just cash out in general if you don't think you can do double down correctly. That's about it for the early game strat of mech. Now onto our last comp we got is Twisted Fate, and there's 2 different versions you can play it. You can play either the Juggernaut version, which is this one, 6 Juggernaut with the 3 carries in the back, or you play this version with 6 Bastions and then the 3 carries in the back. This version is actually a lot better because you can flex either Seraphine or Gwen, so you can use whatever 5 cost units you want in the backline. And the reason why Gwen's better for this style is because you also have Sork with Swain, and you also have Soul Fighter with Xin Zhao. So you have a lot of synergies here. And you also gain Crew with TF and Shen, so it gives them extra attack speed for TF. Or if you did play the Seraphine version, then you get Star Guardian with Rel. So you have a lot of potential with this style of the board compared to 6 Juggernaut. But 6 Juggernaut is just way easier to play as you're progressing. And the items you want to play around is Witsu's Rage Blade on TF with a Gunblade and +1 whatever. It could be IE, or it could be Giant Slayer, or it could be any artifact. It doesn't really matter. And all Zyra wants is any mana item you can find on her, like Shojin blue buff, if you want to do that for her. But most of the time I itemize my Seraphine instead. She literally just uses whatever item. You can put just these gloves on her and she's fine. Or you can put whatever AP items like Jewel Gauntlet, Death Cap, Archangel Staff, or you can throw in mana items such as blue buff or Shojin, or even Protector's Vow. It actually works on her too. It doesn't really matter. You can put whatever items on Seraphine and she works with it. But I would say this is the case for putting whatever items on her if you're playing the 6 Bastion route, because you need that Star Guardian activated to make her items kind of useful for that stuff. So I would say for at least a Juggernaut route, maybe look for regular AP items and you'll be fine with Seraphine. For the best fruits you want to look for on Twisted Fate would be Noxus Trap. I would highly suggest to force this fruit no matter what on him, because this gives you everything you would need on Twisted Fate to do lots of damage. If you cannot find this one, then Shadow Clone is okay. Or if not, maybe Ramping Rage is also pretty decent. The second unit I would suggest the fruit would be Seraphine, and Mage would be really good on her, so she could do tons of damage on the board. If not, Mind Battery is also pretty okay. Unless you want a fruit Zarya, then Mana Rush would be best on her, just so you can cast instantly to give extra attack speed to the board so that Twist of Fate can just ramp up his damage quickly. To play the early game for this board, the best way is to play with Gnar with a Gwynsu's Rage Blade. And the reason why the Juggernaut route is so much easier to play to progress is because you can play with Aatrox and Mundo, so that you can get Luchador with Gnar. And then from here you can throw in a +1 sniper, like for example, a Sivir. So now you have pretty good synergies here. It's just build all Juggernauts to play for fast 9. But the Bastion route allows you to play Crystal Gambit. And what you do is when you play the Bastion route, you play with Rel and Garen with Ezreal and Syndra. And either one could be your carry, Syndra or Ezreal, doesn't really matter. Unless you have, for example, IE start, then you should play Ezreal carry instead if you have AD item start. Unless you have Gwynsu's Rage Blade, then either one is fine. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, like the whole mech situation at level 6, you can play Crystal Gambit very easily by having Swain and +1 Crystal Gambit unit like Janna or whatever you can find. Then you can use extra econ with this and then pivot into Twist of Fate later when you hit level 8 or 9. And that's pretty much about it for the base meta of patch 15.7. There is possible other comps you can play to climb in this patch. It's just these are the ones that are most consistent to play throughout the patch. If I'm still playing set 15, I'll see you guys on the next one. Laters.